Psalm 46, the 10th verse. Psalm 46:10. Psalm 46:10. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. Though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though the waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at daybreak. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice and the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us, the God of Jacob, our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease. He makes wars cease. Whatever your war, he makes wars cease. To the ends of the earth, he breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted amongst the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. I want you to sit down, but I feel like if you don't testify, the rocks will cry out. I want you to sit down, but I feel like if I don't give you a few seconds to declare what's in your heart to somebody, you may explode. If you would, go to about 5 people. Tell them, be still, because he's God. He's God. He's God. He rules. He reigns. He's still on the throne. He's God. As you can see, this is not the message that I was going to continue this week from last week. So you have to be here next week to get that. But this so stirred in my spirit as it relates to how fitting it is for this moment in time, this snapshot, that I could not go with the scheduled message, but rather the one that finds prophetic alignment with where we are. And this passage is interesting, and it's taught often from a one-sided vantage point, and it rightfully so, in line and in keeping with what was just saying in the song as an instruction to God's creation. Originally, it is a corporate instruction that has individual implication to everyone who was a child of God, but in a general sense, this was spoke to the children of Israel. And he uses the writer poetic language to really give a sense of where things are. He speaks of raging waters and waves crashing and foaming waters and spears and shields and bows. But in the midst of all that, there is this divine thread of God's activity that is weaved through the fabric of apparent chaos. All of these devastating realities, and nestled in the middle of this passage are the words, the stream of the Lord flow to here, Zion or Jerusalem, to his people. And I don't want you to get lost in the symbolism without missing the point that in the middle of the corporate and personal storms in people's lives, God says, listen, there is still activity, and it is always the reality. There's always God's activity, and there is the chaos that surrounds us, sometimes the chaos that is within us, the tumult around us, but also the tumultuous state of our mind, our being. There's some people in this place that know what it is to wake up more tired than you went to bed because of the weight on your life. Sleepless nights, doubts, fears, ruminating over mistakes, frailties, failures, questions concerning your future, whether there's hope, whether God is done with you, whether there is more, if you'll ever be out of the predicament you find yourself in, if you will constantly be pestered and harassed for the rest of your life. There are people that have come into this place with all sorts of personal tumult. But like these people, we look at the landscape around us, and it seems like everybody's crazy. There was always drama, but it just seems like things are getting crazier, and people are getting less logical and not just more emotional. There's a place for emotion, but some of it just makes no sense at all. We're all scratching our head trying to figure out what's going on, whatever perspective, whatever side, whatever vantage point we're observing reality from. I think everybody's saying, what's going on? His word comes to the children of Israel, and he says in the midst of using symbolic language and that's what he was trying to get at when he was talking about the crashing waters and the foaming waters and the shield and the bow and the attacks. He was giving us a sense of both the corporate and personal chaos people were dealing with. But in the midst of that, there is this juxtaposition. In the midst of that, he said there is still a stream. He says the river of God. I love that. It is one of intention, one of calm. It's get this. I love that he uses water. While everything in the world is crashing, he says you can tap into a different flow. There is in God, he says, a different flow. He says there's a different flow. He says there's a river in the midst of everything that's going on, the river of God that flows to, listen to me, flows to exactly where you are. This passage has been taught, though, as something we are to do. But I suggest to you that, number one, this passage does reveal that there is something we are to do amid everything going crazy around us and the frustrations that are within us. He actually calls us to do something. But I submit to you, and we won't get to it till the end, that this instruction is not simply to you. And this passage, in the way you've been taught it, and even the way the song declared it, is good, but it's not complete. A survey of the original context gives us a fuller sense of what the Lord is saying to us. But before we get to what we weren't aware of, let's talk about what we are aware of and what we know for sure. I always taught this as a primary command to you to be still and know that I am God. And that is, don't leave here too soon before we get to the end of this message, because I don't want you to leave this place and tell folks that I'm in here teaching heresy, all right? So I want to be clear that it's okay to understand this passage in the way that we just sang it, that we are to be still and know that he's God. But there's a broader sense that gives us, that empowers us to be able to live that reality out. And we'll get there at the end, which means that you can't get to brunch early. You have to stay for the full message. Don't be tipping out. We're locking the doors. This is a picture of two realities. Say two realities. Two realities painted. Two systems are pictured through this passage. Two systems in one natural and adorning world. On one hand, he has raging seas, he has wars, he has strife, he has contention. On the other hand, he said, but there is a river, which is the Lord's portion. He said there's a different flow you can tap into with all of this foolishness going on around you and with some of the challenges that you're facing within. He said there is a river of the Lord. Verse 3 says, though the waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. Verse number 4, here it is. There is a river whose streams follow me, make glad the city of God. There's something God is doing that will cause us to have joy in the midst of sorrow. There's something that God's doing that will allow our response to be countercultural. There's something God's up to, because there are always two activities in every reality. Whatever you're facing, please always get the Lord's narrative before you start crying and singing, woe is me. It reminds me of Elijah when the enemies sent horsemen and chariots to surround him, to take him by force because of the prophetic gift that was on his life. He was giving insight to the king of Israel in the king of Israel's battle against the armies of Aram. The Bible said that the Lord told Elisha what the king whispered in his bedroom. God is so cold-blooded that right before the enemy sets his booby trap for you, he'll give you revelation, allowing you to circumvent the trap that the enemy has. It is a beautiful thing to walk with the Lord and to commune with the Lord. The enemy's traps rarely work on those who commune with the Lord. Because he was so cold-blooded, Israel was getting the victory. They sent a whole force to go get this fugitive by the name of Elijah. And when Elijah's servant sees them coming, he runs back in terror to Elijah and says, yo, Elijah, we are surrounded by our enemies. And notice his vision of that reality caused panic and horror in him. Elijah does not seem to respond in the same way. As one person is experiencing horror and terror, Elijah puts on his robe, gets up confidently, and walks out almost as if he didn't see anything. Elijah looks at his servant and said, Lord, I know that there are two realities in every situation. My servant does not realize yet that there are always two realities in every situation. There is the reality that you can see, but then there is the reality of God's divine activity that you cannot always see. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to give him the same revelation that you've given me. He sees in the natural but can't see in the spirit. Lord, would you open up his eyes so that he can see the same things I see? The Bible said when the servant's eyes were open, he still saw the situation. Please hear me. The situation you're facing is real. You just seen part of it though. He still sees the chariots that were sent to get Elijah, but when God opens up his eyes for real, he does not just see the enemy's activity, but he sees heaven's activity, and he sees that what has them surrounded is surrounded by God's chariots and God's armies and God's activities. I'm not suggesting that your dilemma is not real. I'm just telling you, I'm here to remind you that there are always two realities. And God has ordered your steps into this place for you to simply remember that though your eyes see what the enemy's up to, I pray that God, by the time we leave, opens up your eyes so that you can see the raging waters, but also the river of the living God that's getting ready to make you glad in the middle of your circumstance. He says, be still. Be still. Ooh, I love his word. Be still. Be still and know that I am God. Ebonics version. Translation. Chill out. Try this. Ebonics, here it is. Post up. And know that I'm God. He says, I want you, the most popular rendering of this, he says, I want you in the midst of all this. I know it's difficult. This is not vain optimism. This is not mind over matter. He says, but I want you to be still and know that I am God. Honestly, this should be transposed a bit because you really, in the middle of a real life circumstance, somebody in this place, you got a diagnosis. Somebody in this place, you are trying to believe in the sufficient God with insufficient funds. Somebody in this place is on the verge of your life being turned upside down, and you're trying to put the pieces together. And it feels like vain optimism to hear in the middle of everything you're going through to be still and know that I am God. But we need to invert that a bit. How do you be still when all hell is breaking loose? That sounds real good for church, but after I leave here, I got some bills to pay. That sounds real cute for an amen, but after I get up out of here, they have to run some more tests on me. That sounds really good, but after I leave here, I got to figure out how I'm going to feed my children when I don't have the source that I used to have. And he says, be, that's easy for you to say. It says, be still, the progression, and know that I am God. But it actually should be transposed. If you ask me how, because the latter half needs to go first if you need to understand, if you ask the right question, how do you be still with everything raging around you? Be still and know that I am God. Here's how it should read. Because I'm God. Somebody got it? Because I am God, you can be still. Now, if I'm not God, if I didn't open up the heavens and the earth when you need it, if I'm not God, if I'm not the one that's still able to heal, if I'm not God, if I'm not the one that separated the waters from the land, the seas from the sky, then you have something to worry about. If I'm not God, the one that parted the Red Sea, if I'm not God, the one that gave them manna from heaven with no 7-Elevens or A.M.P.M.s, grocery stores anyway, if I'm not God, the one that allowed them to walk in the wilderness, and the sandals, the soles of their shoes did not wear out for 40 years. Nike and Reebok are still trying to get the patent on those sandals. Christian Louboutin, red bottoms, how about 40 years? The soles of their shoes did not wear. If I'm not the God that didn't send the Savior, I understand where you are, but you can be still because he says, am God. And enough about what happened in the Bible. I am God in your life. Didn't I do it for you the last time your back was up against the wall? What happened the last time you were in crisis? What happened the last time your enemies surrounded you? Did I not prepare a table before you in your life previously? Am I not the God that met every one of your needs according to your glorious riches? Am I not the God that may not have showed up when you wanted me? but was right on time the last time. Be still. Be still. Be still. Chill out. Chill out. Be still. How do you be still? You got to know something. Be still and know that I am God. Because it is your knowing that steals you. It is your knowing that quiets the voices of the critics. It is your knowing that gives you confidence walking into a courtroom and they have the dream team and you have a public defender. It is your knowing that allows you to be still. Sometimes I'm still and people are asking, how are you still? I have to look at them. I can't give them the full testimony. I have to just look at them now and tell them I know something. I'm sorry. I know something. Next time they're waiting for you to fall apart and you don't fall apart. They're waiting for you to lose your mind. You don't lose your mind. They're waiting for you to exchange insult for insult. And people are trying to figure out how you don't exchange insult for insult. They go low, you go high, and they're trying to figure out why. Look at them and tell them, I know something. If they ask you what you know, tell them, I know he's God. I just know he's God. I can be still because I'm trying not to combust, but I'm going to teach this. I know something. That he's God. He says, if we're going to do the work, he says, be still. Be still. Another way of saying this, the more accurate rendering of this, here it is. You ready for this? Because he's God, be still. The more accurate translation is, here it is, cease striving and know that I am God. Cease striving and know. I'm going to tell you what a word you lolo is striving. Living a life not from rest, but living a life of striving. Stop engaging in activity produced or prompted by misplaced motivations or fears. What's striving? Striving is living a life when you look at the engine that is driving the behaviors, when you look at the engine that is driving the lifestyle, it is not love or trust, follow me, but it is fear or misplaced motivation. If there's a word that captured the spirit of this time, it would be striving. Misplaced motivations or fears that are driving activities. Have you ever done an inventory of yourself? I found that most people are masterful at calling out other people's activities or misdeeds, motivations. We have become proficient at looking at people around us and discerning where they're coming from. But I've noticed that some of the most spiritual people can discern everybody but themselves. You can see someone's doubts. You can see someone's fears. You can see someone's flaws. You can see someone's rumination. You can see someone's missteps. You can peer into their motivations. But what I found is most of us are ignorant of our own drivers. We're engaged in a whole lot. But there's a powerful question in the midst of all of our activities, because it is not only important for you to be mindful of your activities, but I think the motivating factors for our activities should be considered, because the motivating factors of our activities, no matter what they are, will ultimately produce or manifest our destiny. And our destiny looks like more like our motivations than it does our incremental actions. So if we don't address motivations, we will end up becoming or producing a reality consistent with our motivations, not our incremental actions. But one of the things that helps us here, the writer says, I need you to be still and know that I'm God. Do not live a life of striving, but live a life, follow me, of knowing. But here is the challenge. Most people in this place are not self-aware enough to even know what motivations are driving our actions. Because we're engaged in things and don't even ask the question, one word question, here it is, why? Why? Why am I hustling? Why am I pursuing this? Why am I pursuing them? Why am I worried? Why am I doubting? Why can I believe in everything else, but I can't believe in myself? Why can I believe it'll work for them, but it won't work for me? If we don't ask the question why for the behavioral patterns and sabotaging cycles that we find ourselves in, we have no hope of ever changing those cycles. But a powerful question, the one-word question is, why? Nothing wrong with being driven, but there may be a challenge and a toll on your soul if you're driven to prove to the Father that wasn't there that you could make something out of your life. At the end of the day, you make good money, but if he still doesn't see after a life of success, you end up in the same deficit. One can be out of motivation because God has gifted you to make a whole lot of money to further his kingdom and to establish his glory. The other one could be the same amount of money, but because it was not out of purpose, but out of striving, the toll that it takes on your soul becomes unbearable over time. He says, cease striving. When you don't know that I am God, there are all sorts of activities in your life that you're driven and tossed by because you've never asked the question, why am I doing this? Some folks are trying to prove to a girlfriend that talked about you in the 5th grade that she missed out on the man of her dreams. Meanwhile, she's passed. You missed the funeral. She's been gone 10 years. Are you still here with me? There's somebody right now that's trying to catfish your ex, and they're not even looking at your stories. Are you with me? They are booed up with somebody else right now at this moment. You're spending your entire life striving for something that may not produce the ends that you're after. God says, I did not call you into this life to strive. I called you in this life to thrive. And part of what allows you to thrive is to be still, to cease striving, and know that I am God. If you get back to the foundation, then the activity will be blessed. Not only will the activity be blessed, you will have peace in your soul in the midst of chaos if you remember that I am your source. I am your motivation. Sometimes you've got to ask the question, why? Why am I doing this? What are the origins of it? What is the engine that's driving my behavioral patterns? I remember one time, I was about 19, 20 years old, something like that. I had a girlfriend, and she was cute, but she was a headache, man. She was rough. And I didn't know it while I was in it, but every day was an argument. She complained about everything, but it was one of those situations I just found myself in, and because I was in it, And I was driving on the 710 freeway one day. 710, I'll never forget this. I was driving on the 710 freeway. I'd done this maybe 20 times. And as I'm driving on the 710 freeway, I'm smacking my lips, and I'm like, oh, man, why am I going? And I'm driving down the 710 freeway, And I just called, said I'm gonna be a little late because, and as I'm saying I'm gonna be a little late, she's on the other video. I don't remember what she said. I just remember. But I keep driving. I said, okay, I'll be there shortly. And I keep driving. I've done this 20, maybe 30 times. Right on the 17th freeway. I'll never forget this. And then this revelation came to me. It was a question. It came to me. It was a recalibrating question. It was a one-word question. It was a revelation from the Lord. I was driving down the 17th freeway and something dropped in my spirit. Why? I pray a why anointing over somebody in this. I pray a why blessing over your life. And as I was driving, the question why came into my spirit. Why am I wasting my gas? I don't want to go. Why am I wasting my night? Don't want to be here. Why be another argument when I want to chill? Why? Now I'm getting upset because I'm thinking about all the last 30 times. Why have I done this 30 other times? I'll never forget this. After why jumped on me, the motivating factor for the behavior, I didn't ask that question before. After why jumped on me, then it got good to me. You know what I mean? Why is recalibrating, but it'll give you a boldness. Are you still here with me? I didn't say why, but I knew what I needed to do. I grabbed the phone and said, I am not coming. She said, why? I said, because I don't want to. If I could have busted a U-turn on the 17th freeway, I would have done it, but I got off on PCH instead and took my behind home. My why changed everything. How many of us find ourselves in patterns, find ourselves giving ourselves to behaviors, consistently spending the vast majority of our time because we didn't ask why? Because we didn't peer beyond the veneer to excavate the motivation for our actions. If we excavate the motivation, we'll find, like me on that 17th freeway, there were fears in there. There were fears. There were concerns. And for some of us, our motivating factor is fear. For others of us, our motivating factor, listen to me, if you explore it, has nothing to do with purpose or what God has dreamed up for your life or even what will bring you long-term satisfaction in your life. Are you still here with me? He says, follow me, cease striving. And one of the ways you cease living life or being engaged in a lifestyle of striving is by getting back to your why, getting back to the engine that drives your behaviors. He says, cease striving. If there's ever anything, a period or ethos that defines this time, it's if one day historians may look back and say this was a generation of striving. Striving to keep up. Striving to be enough. Striving to prove your worth to people that may never see it. Let me help y'all out, real simple. Some people will never like you. Stop spending your time trying to figure out why. What is it? Is it my hair? Is the gift on my life? Is because God's good to me? Why? Listen, get over it. Some people will never like you. If you're down, they don't like you because you don't have enough. If you have too much, they're going to hate because they don't like you with it. Are you with me? Some people are never going to like you no matter how you adjust. Listen to me. Stop striving, trying to prove you're enough. Some of us, listen, can't be still. We're striving to stay relevant, striving to gain acceptance and not to lose one Instagram friend in the process. Striving Striving. I've talked to more people who are engaged in more activity than ever before and feeling more behind than they've ever been. Because we're chasing some things that were never ordained for us. And God does not give us supernatural grace to carry loads that he never put on us. In fact, God will allow you to feel the burden of loads that are too heavy when he did not put them on you, so that you'll drop them to get back to the load, the assignment, the direction, the path that he has for you. Some of you are under a load, and I am not coming to help you. And the reason I'm not coming to help you is I could discern that some of that is not meant to be carried. Some of that is meant to be offloaded. Are you with me? And you're going to kill you and me coming to your rescue to try to help you carry something God has not ordained for you to carry. If God has not ordained for you to carry that, you're going to crush you and me. So one of the prayers I pray for sometimes is not more strength, but greater discernment. I want to discern if this is of God, because I don't want to carry what is not of God, because God will allow what is not of him to crush you until you unload it so that you can take on his yoke. He says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light, but I'm not going to make light and easy stuff that is not a part of your destiny or assignment. So don't call me. If I pray and discern that you don't need to carry this, but we need to offload this, I am not your friend. Are you with me? I'm not going to come help you carry that. I'm not going to move. I'll pay some money to help you get some movers, but I ain't going to help you move it. You're not going to throw out your back and my back. You're not going to have you stressed out and me stressed out, because God graces us to carry loads that he's placed on us. But because we're striving to be, striving to prove, striving to defend, striving because we're afraid, striving because we are concerned, striving because we're empty, striving. Listen to me. We are burdened. And the pervasive defeatism that surrounds us has now begun to get to us. And it's become an unbearable strain. Can I tell you what unhealthy striving is? Unhealthy striving here is activity that is produced not out of, listen to me, impurity, but out of not deeply or truly knowing something. It is not out of rebellion, but ignorance. It's not by intention that we find ourselves here, but out of forgetfulness. We've forgotten something. What do we forget? That he's God. When I tell you, one of the most recalibrating things, people doing all kind of stuff to what you're doing, I'm recentering. It's cool. You're recentering, it's cool to meditate, but what you meditating on? Recentering, I'm manifesting. It's cool to manifest as long as you include the manifestor. We're doing all kinds of things to recenter, but can I tell you what actually recenters us, what orders reality, what brings things back into their proper place is a knowing something. And this is not just abstract or ambiguous, but knowing, first of all, knowing God. Duh. Those who come to God must believe that he is. and the rewarder of them who diligently seek him, recognizing that God is real, that God must believe he is, and a rewarder of them who seek him, that God is here for you to seek him. And that God has good that he wants to release into chaotic, confusing, and difficult circumstances. That's a good place to start, knowing that God is. And you talk about recentering. When you really understand this, this is why you don't miss too many opportunities to corporately worship. When you begin to understand this, it is the worship. It is our personal devotion, getting in our word, remembering what God is like, remembering what God has done. And as we worship and magnify the Lord, as we magnify the Lord and make God more prominent, again, the worries that have been prominent are pushed to the periphery as God takes the primary spot. That's why you can just speak on the attributes of God, and the presence of God comes in to the middle of it. Are you with me? And you're reminded of all that God's done as you thank God for past benefits, but also in faith say, God, I know you're still not done with me. As you worship the Lord, he becomes prominent in the center, and those worries, those doubts, those fears, those concerns begin to move. Those things that have you chasing your tail, those things that have you trying to put out all the fires, it centers you. As you make God primary, those things begin to melt and go to the periphery. He says, when you're still, how can you be still with all this? By knowing something, knowing that he is God. Hear me, not just verbally expressing that he is God, but knowing that he is God. You've heard me say this before, but I partied the night before the SATs and spelled abba-dabba-doo all the way down the Scantron. But I always had the gift of faith. So I applied to Morehouse anyway. With a 680. Like, y'all hear me? Had the gift of faith. God will do some things with faith. And I remember I got in. Don't ask me. I'll tell you that another time. But has anybody ever started at a class that wasn't, when some of y'all AP students, you started as a sophomore in college. No, I love it. Kids do it. I'm talking to your parents that always bougie. But then there's usually 101 is the baseline when you come. But there are a few saints that can testify to having to take some classes that didn't start with a 1. 051. Anybody ever done that? 05. So there was I could read, but I just partied the night before the SAT. So they gave me a reading comprehension, and I don't know what I scored, but they made me take 051. And I said, what is this? They said, it's remedial reading. I said, no, you got this mixed up. You have the wrong person. And I don't remember anything from that class except this. The lady made it plain to me and made me feel a little bit better about being there, because she said that there's vocabulary, and the vocabulary and I thought vocabulary was just one-dimensional. If you know a word, then you know the word. That is your vocabulary, right? If you say something and I understand what you're saying and can explain it back to you, then you know the word. That's part of your vocabulary. She said, see, that's why you're here. She said, because it's more than just vocabulary. She said there's your vocabulary. She says, but then there is your active vocabulary. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, your active vocabulary is not you understanding what something means or what something's about or having knowledge of that. She said, your active vocabulary is when you actually embody the concept enough to make it a part of your rotation, so that when you're communicating, you actually use the words in conversation that you knew about when someone else said it. And I said, as I looked at this passage, that seems just like God, because there is a knowing that comes, knowing about God, knowing that God can, knowing that God has done good things, knowing God, stories of God in the Bible. But then there is the active knowing, the embodied knowing, the knowing that is a part of me, the knowing that informs my actions, the knowing that informs my words, the knowing that informs whether I step into the opportunity or whether I let it go for another year because I don't feel qualified or worthy. The knowing that says God will use me versus the knowing that says, well, I've seen him use others. He says, be still and know that I am God. This is an embodied knowing that informs every part of your life. This is the kind of knowing that allows you to go to sleep in the middle of the storm, because while you don't know how you're going to get out of it, you know the one who still speaks to the winds and the waves. That's what Jesus was trying to show us. When he went to sleep in the middle of the storm, he was saying, when you have a Father in heaven, you don't know how the storm is going to pan out, but what you do know is he's going to keep you safe in the storm. And while everybody else is panicking, that same rocking rocks you to sleep when you know that he is God. You can be still. You can chill. You can post up. He says, be still. Let's get home. Be still. Be still. And know I'm God. The writer pits one motivating factor over the other. One activity against the other. Either our activity is born out of striving or knowing. Enough about this. As you inventory your life, the challenge that you walked in here with, the deficit that you've been wrestling through, the thing that's been heavy on your heart, that very thing that's been keeping you up at night. In that situation, in that scenario, let me ask you this. Are you scrambling? Are you living in fear? Have you forgotten that you know these words, but you haven't used them in your active rotation? Are you striving? Or do you know? Do you know what? This passage, read it when you go home, unpack it. It says that the Lord is our shield. The Lord is our tower. The Lord is near. In the midst of all this, there is a river. There's a river from God that flows to me. It flows to Jerusalem. It flows to his people both collectively and individually. He says, with everything, with the storms raging, he said, you don't have to be tossed. He said, you can get into the flow by remembering that I am God. Now, I promised you, and thank you, nobody left. I promised you that I would tell you that this word is declared not only to the children of God, follow me, but when he declares his word, he declares it in the context of all creation, which gives us a little twist on this revelation. It expands our aperture and allows this statement to become more robust. He says, be still and know I'm God. Be still and know I'm God. Be still and know I'm God. And why we've been limited is because we believe, rightfully so, like the song just said, as God speaks to his children, I got this. Be still. Here's how you steal your mind. Here's how you steal your heart. Here's how you quiet the raging waters. Remember that I'm here. Remember that I'm God. He says to the believer, be still and know that I'm God. But that's not all he's saying, because this is not spoken simply to the believer, but it is spoken to the context of all creation. And we've simply made this about God saying to the believer, chill out, post up, and be still by knowing that I am God. That is part of it. But you missed the part. Because if you look at the clues in this context, right after he says that, he begins to speak. He says, I will break the bow. I will set the shield on fire. I am God, and before me the whole earth melts. I will quiet the waters. Most scholars believe that this is not limited, and I'm one of them, to God speaking to his people and saying, be still and know that I'm God. That's part of it. But it's a twofold revelation because it is spoken within the context of all creation. And here it goes. This word, be still and know that I'm a God, we're going to get to. He says, be still and know that I'm God, my child. Be still and know that I'm God, my church. Be still and know that I'm God, my family. But here's the idea. It says, I will break the bow, not your bow. I'll break the shield, not your shield. I'll destroy the weapons, not your weapons, the ones that you're getting attacked with. So this is a twofold revelation. He says to the believer, be still and know that I'm God. But the idea is one of pivot. You missed that. Be still, my child, and know that I'm God. But it's an idea with a pivot. All right, let me see if you get it one more time for the Holy Ghost. He says, be still and know that I'm God. Get some sleep tonight. Dry your tears tonight. While you're sleeping, I'm on the job. Be still and know that I am God. But what is the revelation that allows me to be still? Number one, knowing that he's God. Number two, knowing that he's close. Number three, knowing that he loves me. But number four, he's not just talking to me. This is a word of pivot. When he says be still, he says be still to me while simultaneously pivoting. When he says I will break the bow, I will break the shield, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. He's not saying be still to me. He said I'm getting ready to say to the bow, be still. You will not fire another shot. I'm getting ready to say to the raging waves, you will not crash on this shore another day. The be still to me is because God says, I'm stepping up and I'm on the job. You couldn't do it in your own strength, but I'm getting ready in my power to simmer some stuff that you couldn't simmer by yourself, to silence some critics that you couldn't silence by yourself, to heal some stuff that medicine couldn't heal by itself. He's getting ready to tell sickness, be still. He's getting ready to tell lack, be still. He's getting ready to tell your broken heart to be still and know that I am God. In other words, you don't stand a chance against what I got. You go to bed, I'm on the job. Cancer, be still. Sickness, be still. Lack, be still. Brokenness, be still. Powerlessness, be still. Listen. I'm out of here. We got to go. Last thing, but this word, be still, I told you, meant cease striving. But there is another revelation from this word or meaning associated with the word be still. Here it is. It means desist. God looks at you and says, be still and know, but then pivots to what's been tormenting you and says, all right, desist. See, y'all ain't been in court. I gotta go. But if you're a good person, you try to handle most of your problems yourself. But some problems And some people are too persistent and too crazy to respect your voice. You tell them, don't come around here, and they come back 5 times. You tell them, stop talking about me, and their voice gets louder. You tell them, leave me alone, and they pop up everywhere you're gonna be. Are you still here with me? Sometimes you gotta go beyond your voice. I didn't want to do this, but now I gotta get legal. I don't know if you're here, and it has ever escalated to the point where you didn't want to be bothered so much that you had to shut your mouth, call up your attorney, and have them send a cease and desist with the weight of the entire law behind it. I gotta go, but God sent me in this place to declare you can close your mouth now. You can go to bed now. Your voice hasn't done anything about this problem, but I'm getting ready to send what's been driving you crazy a cease and a desist with the entire weight of heaven behind it. Look at your neighbor and tell him, go to sleep, go to sleep. God is getting ready to cause a cease and desist to come over what's had you down. If you believe it, give God a praise in this place.